$2 million study in the Templeton group. Anybody hear of the Templeton group here? It's actually a Phoenix-based religious group, a Christian group, that put on this double-blind study, hired all these scientists. They wanted to prove that prayer worked. And I actually read part of the study. Well, I brought up the prayer subject. Does anyone know why Christians say their God heals the sick, but never, ever heals amputees? If God was omnipotent, he could heal an amputee like this. Not one amputee has ever been healed in modern times. I hope I'm not asking too many questions here. Am I asking too many questions? Okay, great. I'm enjoying this. Is everybody enjoying it so far? Am I bringing up some issues that you might talk about later? Great. Sometimes when I meet Christians, I ask them, just for a moment, put on your no God glasses. God won't condemn you for doing this. Be skeptical of something that you might have feared by asking questions of one current concepts of any supernatural power is the first step in making an intelligent and rational choice of one's world. One might, after exploring the world with open eyes, still make the choice that there is a supernatural force that exists. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with anyone believing in anything they want to believe in. If you call that entity a god or a ghost or anything that you want, that's fine. But let's examine the God for a moment. After all, we can't get away with talking about the existence of God if I'm an atheist. So I could spend a lot of time on the God question. In fact, I just saw Michael Shermer and De Souza, is that how to pronounce his name? De Souza? God debate up in Fresno last Friday. That was 5 hours of driving for 2 hours of talking. Well, each way 5 hours. If the God we are talking about is the Christian, Islamic, Judea God, then we are talking about a God that knows everything, knows where each and every atom in our body is at all times, knows our thoughts even when we're dreaming or asleep, knows where every atom in our world is and in every star, and in each of the estimated billion alien worlds as well as the aliens themselves, knows their thoughts as well, and has the power to change anything against the laws of physics. Something like this that has so much power should be able to make this world, as well as every other world in the universe, a nirvana, but decides not to do so. Not only that, but blames us for making this world the way it is. Not only is this supernatural being in control of every physical atom in the universe, but it has no physical body to speak of, no brain to do such a thing. It has no visible energy, nor detectable energy or matter to make things happen. And it's transcendent, neither matter nor energy. And it's possibly even of another dimension. If one examines a deity like this skeptically, then one might come to the conclusion that it's very difficult to accept that such a God exists without much evidence of said God. If someone comes to you and says, he believes in the flying spaghetti monster. How many people here have heard of the flying spaghetti monster? That's the atheist God. That's the God where, I think it was, you know who made that up, Vaughn? Listening, Vaughn? Wake up.
I did, but I can't.
Richard Dawkins, I think.
Huh?
I think it was before him, actually.
Yeah, it was before.
Okay. That is the flying spaghetti monster is the atheist God. There is no God, so we call him something silly. That tells you, suppose, I'll back up a little bit. If someone comes to you and says he believes in the flying spaghetti monster God and tells you all the powers of this God, would you start asking him questions? Especially if you believe in the God that you believe in now. Of course you would. Either that or you'd call the mental institution to come pick him up. If someone told you that he found an old book hidden underground in his backyard and it was from God, would you believe him? Probably not. Finally, if a Muslim, Buddhist, or Hindu told you there was another God, other gods, and billions of other people out there were sincerely and strongly believing in this God, were you to believe him? Well, this is a little more believable than the previous examples, but only because you know the fact that others believe in different gods. You might start wondering why so many other people around the world believe in these gods sincerely. And that's a good start for any believer, because if you say there's one God, it's a little bit arrogant in a way. If you say there's no gods, it's actually arrogance. People have called me arrogant. How can you say that? It's something that I believed in from a childhood. It just doesn't make any sense. I've grown up with it. I've seen miracles, coincidences, And I've seen people, I've seen the work of the Lord. How can you say there's no God? Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. Here's a couple questions I have. And again, I could talk a lot of time about this, and I enjoy talking about this. But if you have any answers to these questions, please let me know. Why are there so many evil acts in the Bible? Why are the previous pagan gods so much like Jesus? And I think that Doug knows a very good question because I saw you on YouTube. Why aren't miracles still occurring today? And we're talking about big miracles that they used to, not little miracles that you pray for. Cancer, yes, it does go into remission sometime on its own. If we have free will, I'm sorry?
Rising from the dead type miracles.
Rising from, that's a pretty big one. If we have free will, how can God be omnipotent? You can't have free will and have God know that what you're going to do and then you change your mind. What verses do you throw out when they are proven wrong? For instance, slavery. Why has God given me and all the non-believers the curiosity and aptitude to pursue our journey, our personal journey? And why do the religious leaders squash science discoveries during the Dark Ages for nearly 1,000 years? Now that's a little bit outside this discussion, but that was religion that did that. It could have been Islam, it could have been Hindu, it could have been any other religion, but it happened to be the Christian religion that did that. The God question can also take up several days of speaking, but what I can say in my humble opinion that I have looked but not found any evidence of any gods, or for that matter, any supernatural powers of any kind in this world. Psychics, dowsers, water dowsers, all those people have been proven all wrong. This is not a cynical viewpoint, as I mentioned earlier. It's a rational viewpoint that makes me feel much more comfortable knowing that I make decisions on my own and without any mystical support. I believe that life unexplored is not worth living. This phrase sounds like it supports suicide, but if it did, I would be obviously totally against it. What it means is this: if one travels through life believing anyone tells one to believe, one has not lived a good life. If one believes others blindly with total obedience, then one has not lived a life that is their own, but that of another. So why am I not a deist or a theist? It's because I have looked at so many religions and found many faults with all of them. It's because I see that if one belongs to a religion, and this is a really big point, I recently read this. If one belongs to a religion, it's supposed to make one feel better than those outside the religion. And I find something very wrong with this. It's because I see people making a decision on what others believe just because those in an authoritative position say it. When that happens, our community, as well as sometimes countries, gets split between different ideologies. Several examples are abortion, gay rights, stem cell research, not giving condoms to people in countries, Africa, who needs to protect them against AIDS, the desecration of science, the idea that man is sinful when he is born, and many other issues. But of all, I see people who believe in religion as those who believe in something supernatural, something invisible, something that cannot